Welcome back to the worst video topic ever, and this is the last part in the series, part number 9. The title of this video is Laid Off? Take a deep breath. I've been in this industry for over 15 years, and even after all these years, I still remember that first time that I got laid off. I got laid off from my first job that was not a freelance job. It was my first real developer job. And I remember being called into the room, and I had a pretty good idea that this was going to be happening. We'd laid off multiple other people on the team, and I was actually the last person to be let go from this part of the company. Um, but I remember walking into that room. I remember sitting down. I remember listening to my manager as she told me that I was no longer going to be employed at the company, and that they were laying me off. There was nothing that I had done to be fired. It was just a matter that they weren't going to be continuing down that business path, and so my job was just no longer necessary. And even though I had a good idea that this was coming, man, my heart just sank. And I had this almost sickness. I almost felt like I could throw up. I It was one of the worst feelings that I had ever had in my entire life. Here I had given almost 3 years to this company. This actually was the longest tenure of my dev career, was that first job. And I had given almost 3 years to that company. I wanted to do anything and everything I could to make that company successful, because I knew my success would be related to the success of the company. And I knew that there were, changes being made and things like that. But man, when they say those words, and they tell you that to go clean out your desk, and they walk through any other, HR responsibilities that they have to do, and it's a very surreal moment. It's a moment you don't really realize everything that's happening while it's happening. You look around at faces that you used to work with, and people that you had laughs with, and that you ate meals with sometimes, and worked with, and struggled with, and all of a sudden all of that is being taken away. Um, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through, especially that first time. Of course, I've been through other layoffs since then, and they were definitely easier to go through. But every time really has still hurt. Every time had some nuance to it that made it hard to go through. And so we need to be real. We need to be real about the reality of being laid off. And the reason why this is titled Take a Deep Breath is because that's really what you need to do. Because getting laid off hurts. It hurts a lot. It hurts emotionally. There is just this wave of multiple emotions that come over you. Oftentimes it's fear of what's going to happen to you. How are you going to provide for your family? There's anger. I don't deserve this. There's pity sometimes for the person that's firing you, depending on what type of relationship you had with them. So there's a lot of emotions that come with this process of getting laid off. So as we take this deep breath, we need to realize that getting laid off hurts, and it hurts emotionally. It hurts psychologically. It can really do a number on how you think about yourself, how you think about your ability to do the job, how you think about what you have done. Have I ever lived up to? Can I really do what it is that I do for a living? Am I an imposter? I mean, all of these thoughts, psychologically are going through your mind at this time. And you're like, and you need to take a deep breath and just realize, hey, this is part of the grieving process. This is part of the hurting process that comes with being laid off. Sometimes it's even a physical pain. Like I mentioned, I even felt sick that first time in my stomach. Like I almost could have thrown up. Like there was a physical pain. Sometimes people get stressed so much about it, they have actual body aches from that process. maybe it's physical pain, not necessarily on our bodies, but just financially, we're not prepared to be laid off. And so because we're not prepared to be laid off, we're thinking about the reality that, hey, I don't have any more income. I've got to get income to support myself. Or if you have a family, that's an even bigger issue. So there's a lot of pain that goes into this process of being laid off. And we need to recognize that. We need to take a deep breath when it happens, when those words come out of those mouths that you're being laid off. The first thing you need to do is take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and realize this is going to hurt. This is not going to be fun. It's going to be painful. But we can get through it. All right. So it's going to hurt. Layoffs hurt. It's just a reality. But we also need to take a deep breath and kind of bring our thoughts into captivity and not assume that somebody else has done something wrong. Again, we talked about all the different reasons why companies lay people off. And yes, sometimes there is a factor of greed in that process, but especially when it comes to interacting with the manager, we need to not assume that there's wrongdoing towards us by the manager, by the owner, by, whoever else is above them. We need to not make that assumption, because when we make that assumption, we can become bitter. We can lose control of how we interact in that process. And so we need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and don't assume that you being laid off is a wrongdoing by the company. It could just be a matter of circumstances. And if we start going down that road, that's going to impact how we handle the situation, both at the time of the layoff and after the layoff. The third reason we need to take a deep breath when we come across this situation of being laid off is so that we can be professional. We need to be professional during the layoff, and we need to be professional after the layoff. That means, you need to be able to handle the conversation well. You need to be professional in the conversation. It's a tough conversation. You need to respond in a very sympathetic way. You need to respond in a humble way. You need to respond without anger. You need to respond without jumping up and flipping the table or breaking things. We definitely want to make sure that we're professional during the layoff. You don't want to destroy property. That could be a real problem if you don't handle the layoff well. And so you want to take a deep breath and go through this process of the layoff with professionalism. Because the reality is, companies take that into consideration as far as when they bring you back. If you don't handle the layoff professionally, you're probably not going to get called back if they get an opportunity to rehire people down the road. So you need to be professional. And that professionalism isn't just during the process of being told that you're being laid off, or during the process of collecting your items from your desk and packing everything up and being escorted out of the building. But it's even being professional beyond that. It's being professional in how you talk about the situation. It's being professional in how you communicate with the company later on down the road. If you're asking for referrals, or if you're just interacting with employees who survived the layoffs and things like that, be professional in those circumstances as well. Don't go out to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other social medias and start blasting the company or acting like everybody did you wrong. Be professional, because that doesn't just reflect poorly on the company when you act unprofessionally. It reflects poorly on you, and it doesn't just impact your rehirability at that company. It could impact your hireability at another company. If they see the way that you handled the layoff from this company was professional, and it was exactly the way that they would want to interact with you, they might be more likely to hire you than somebody else who goes on Twitter and just rants about all the people that they hate now because, that company was just doing everybody wrong. That's not a good way to get hired onto a new position. So be professional during the process and be professional after the process, and just take a deep breath and choose that you're going to be professional. Finally, take a deep breath so that you don't burn any bridges. And this goes along with being professional, but I really want to make this point separate and clear. You don't just burn bridges with hiring managers. You burn bridges with former bosses. You burn bridges with former coworkers. You burn bridges with recruiters. If you get laid off from a company and you don't handle that well, a recruiter who worked with you to get that job maybe is not going to work with you again because you're just not being professional. And that's another bridge burn. And again, if you remember when we talked about how do you prepare for layoffs, a big part of that is networking. In fact, one of the most important parts is networking. And the more bridges you burn, the smaller that network gets. And it makes it a lot harder for you to have a long career if your network is constantly shrinking because of the way that you're interacting with companies, with employees, with managers, with recruiters, with all these different people involved in the process. If you don't handle it professionally, if you don't take a deep breath and choose to handle it professionally, choose not to burn bridges, choose to keep good network relationships with other people, then you're going to burn bridges. You're going to have a much shorter career because people just are not going to want to work with you. They're not going to want to hire you. And really, when it comes to being laid off, hireability is the most important thing. That could be from a skill standpoint or could be from a burnt bridges standpoint. So while this may be the worst video topic ever, hopefully this series has been a help to you to kind of think through all the different ramifications of layoffs, why they happen, how they happen, who they happen to, how they affect different people and the different processes of being laid off, and how you can prepare to be laid off, and how you can manage the actual layoff process if and when that happens to you. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comment section. I'd love to either answer them there or put them into a future video or another video series similar to this one. If you found this video series helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would click the like button and on all the videos. That would be appreciated. But click the like button just so that YouTube knows that people are interested in this information and they find it helpful. If you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified the next time we upload a video or a video series. Thanks again for spending time with me today. I hope it's been a help to you as you think about this topic of layoffs, and I'll see you on the next video.